Retro, let's get it. We in the chop shop, we live in the chop shop. We talking sports talk, we live in the chop shop. We in the chop shop, I'm talking sports talk. So turn your dials up, it's live in the chop shop. We in the chop shop, we live in the chop shop. We talking sports talk, we live in the chop shop. We in the chop shop, I'm talking sports talk. So turn your dials up, it's live in the chop shop. Yeah, it's lit in the chop shop. Turn your dials up in the drop top. They ain't based to debate, but they keep it fact straight. Going 30 for 30, let's do a first take. On Facebook Live from 12 to 2. Rob Hatter and Jim Hicks going back and forth like Carter Ray, Skip Bayless and Stephen Smith. From on the court, off the court, straight to the field. Not a man that steals, but I made it steal. To the octagon where I fight to kill. We go face to face, then you write your will. I don't play tennis, but I bring the racket. I'm on the floor, I attack the basket. Put you in the casket when I'm overlapping. Never showing mercy, cause I'm always snapping. Never showing mercy when I'm in the arena. Step into the ring, you see me as I beat him. Step into the court, I'm never backing down. Killing competition, I'm smacking down. Let me get back to the other stuff at the chop shop, cause they cutting up. It's retro, coming to you live to the chop shop. Now let's turn it up. Yeah, we in the chop shop, man. Shout out to Jim Hicks and Rob Hatter. You can catch the chop shop live from 12 to 2 on Facebook Live. Let's get it. We in the chop shop, we live in the chop shop. We talking sports talk, we live in the chop shop. We in the chop shop, I'm talking sports talk. So turn your dials up, it's live in the chop shop. We in the chop shop, we live in the chop shop. We talking sports talk, we live in the chop shop. We in the chop shop, I'm talking sports talk. So turn your dials up, it's live in the chop shop.
H-Town, what's up? You know what time it is. It's time for the best 120 minutes of your day. The Chop Shop, the nation's #1 urban sports talk show, and also your midday sports happy hour. Yours truly, Robert Hatter, alongside Jim Hicks, coming to you live from Houston, Texas. But we're broadcasting all over the world via Facebook Live and YouTube Live. We have a special guest today. I'll let Jimmy talk about that a little later, but you know what? I thought about something, and I want you. Over the weekend, I saw something was real key, and I was thinking about Dave Chappelle. If you ask me, it doesn't. He tells stories like a musician. Jimmy, I mean, I sit there. It should go without saying that if you go watch his special, 8.46, it's a must watch. He gave the TED Talk of TED Talks to all the and to all the people out here. I'm telling you, please take 30 minutes out of your day and watch Dave Chappelle's 846. As a majority of us who are big fans of comedy, this is not a comedy set. It's real. It's honest, and he understands this moment, and his words are powerful. I just wanted to share that with y'all. You got to go watch that. But Jimmy, I know we got a lot of stuff. We got to get into this, and we'll talk a little bit about Dave Chappelle a little bit later. But what else you got before we bring our guest on?
I mean, we got going around the horn this morning. A lot of the news out there. I mean, once again about Mondays. This is indeed a fun day for the Chop Shop. So make sure you brace yourself. First, go to NFL news. A couple of Dallas Cowboys and a few Houston Texans have tested positive for that package. And you guys know COVID, I just call it the package. And among those from the Cowboys, Ezekiel Elliott is one of the Cowboys. There's only a small number being reported out of Dallas, but Houston, they say it's a few. So now these guys have privacy laws which protect them from having their names released without their consent. So anytime you hear a professional, remember when the Lakers, they say, A few of the Lakers or the New Jersey Nets had tested positive, and all you could do is speculate. Whoever, and one or two of them came out and say, "Yeah, it's me," but then that wasn't everybody. The rest of them, they exercised their legal right. So now everybody's going to try to, if you're looking and they're having workouts, and people that are media guys that's been following the workouts, you can expect them to just use common sense and say whoever's not at the workout or the voluntary workout on the next day with their normal group, then that might be one of those guys. Hannah, what you think about over the weekend and a lot of stuff, man, we talk about, we're going to get into later on in the show, and it's about the, understand, Black history, and this is one of the undercurrents that's coming out as a result of this latest movement, and for to do away and with the police brutality and social injustices. But in doing so, this time it seems as a more conscious effort for people are willing to listen. People are willing to learn, and on both sides of fences, meaning that last night on 60 Minutes, they did a special, and they included, well, not a special, a segment, which included the Black Wall Street, the Tulsa 1821, almost 100 years.
Tulsa riots. Let's call it what it is.
The Tulsa
riots in Tulsa.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and that segment was informative and provocative for us, making a person that did not have any knowledge of it to want to go dig for more. And that's all. And the thing is that one of the undercurrents is in the segment, one of the guys acknowledged that even in Oklahoma, even in Tulsa, in their scholastic history books, they say had nothing. He was never informed about that historic occurrence, that tragedy. So we'll tap into that later on in the show. How about the Florida name, image, likeness bill was passed over the weekend? Slid on through. A lot of people wasn't paying attention, and so now you had California. I guess they're the third state now. I think Colorado, I think, is one, and then now Florida. Hey, now the NCAA, we're gonna, pose and I guess engage in that conversation later on in the show with our college coach that'll be joining us to get his thoughts on this very topic, on what now is the NCAA's hand totally forced. Now, lastly, on the news, before we get into how do we get back to, we got so much stuff happening over the weekend, man. How about the NCAA is encouraging their schools to give Election Day as a day off from their work? Remember, they're amateurs, guys. They're amateurs.
Hey,
that's
listen,
what?
Jim, if you got your device some up or your Bluetooth something going on over there, because usually make me reverb. Yeah, something you got going on over there. It makes me
Let's check my Bluetooth. Let's make sure we off on the Bluetooth.
Yeah,
how we looking now? Come on, keep. And so that means you say they're listening now, right? The NCAA, they're listening.
The NC, you gotta understand, man. I'm sitting there watching the players now that they are talking about that they want to what you say? They want to kneel now. People talking about they want to kneel. Where were you 4 years ago? And nothing against them. And you listen to me, because when you know better, you do better. So I don't mind you change it, because as the facts change, the truth change. I understand that, but I'm watching just how and guess what, Jim, is better late than never to the party. It's just I can't wait to talk about this NBA stuff and a little bit later. But it's just I'm thinking about it. The people. NCAA, of course. Yes. Just take a day. Just take a day. Jimmy, now they're having, a lot of people. Now people are recognizing Juneteenth as a national holiday. I mean, you got a lot of stuff. The Atlanta Hawks, certain people. And I remember, you got to understand, I'm from Houston. I'm from Memphis. I didn't know anything about Juneteenth until I got to Texas. I knew nothing about it. But that's Black history. That's Black history. And now you see when people start talking about systemic stuff, that was intentionally left out. Y'all can probably say, well, Robert, they might have forgot that history. That was intentionally left out. And guess what? That's the system intentionally left this thing out. I told you, Jimmy, I grew up all my life in Memphis. And Jimmy, I didn't know who Robert Church was. And now I'm knowing who he is, the first black millionaire in Memphis. I mean, I never even imagined there was a guy like that. You follow me? So it's the people, when people always talking about, well, no, it's not systemic. Yes, it is. Educational systems are different. Everything is different. So let me tell y'all something, man. It's so now when we become more aware, that's why I speak about these things when I learn them, when I learn them and talk about them on the show. We've talked about Black Wall Street. We talked about and how the jealousy of, when we go back to Tulsa, these people were thriving. They were doctors, they were lawyers, they were dentists, Jimmy. They were thriving in this little patch of land. And people on the outside was jealous. The white people outside were jealous. They were jealous. So that little all it needed is a little, I mean, they had seething regret, Jimmy. I mean, just to hear the historians talked about how bad it was. And all it took was a young fellow who was a messenger got on the elevator pump. He accidentally hit up against the girl, the elevator operator, and guess what? It was all rape from the first floor to the third floor, Jimmy. She called rape. Let me repeat that. From the first floor, I just learned this, Jimmy. From the first floor, he went to the third floor. She yelled rape. And Jimmy, then they took him to jail. And they were, then the black folks, his daddy had money. His daddy came down there, Jimmy, said, look, how much it gonna cost to get my homeboy out? How much it gonna cost? So guess what they saying? This old uppity, you already, then one guy, couple of the guys had a gun. And the gun went off, shot the guy. Here we go. And they came and tore up the whole area. It's crazy. But Jimmy, it's been going on, baby. We just got to make sure it don't happen again, okay?
Well, the thing is, and I make my challenge to educators and out there now is known, because now it's gonna, what it does is it's a Pandora's box regarding history, a lot of black history, and a lot of the history that is currently in the books that people have long attempted to challenge. Some they've modified, some they've extracted, but there's no way in hell that the Tulsa riots, the massacre, not to mention the planes coming over the top. I mean, that's unbelievable.
It was bombing. They were bombing.
They were. I mean, this should not be in Oklahoma's textbooks. That is no way that shouldn't happen. Buried the people in unmarked graves. There was rumors that little black boy and that little girl was having a little underground fling. That was some other rumors that it came out after that. And you mentioned the elevator.
Well, it must not have been good because she hollered rape. It must not have been good because she hollered rape. Well,
think about it, how she declined to testify, and the boy was acquitted. In the thing, think about it. She didn't want to go up there. Think about all that. She said, no. She changed because
I don't remember that part of the story. I didn't read that part.
Go dig a little deeper. Remember, everybody, you go dig a little deep in the ground. She declined to go and test and give the testimony on him. So that brought up the more of this allegation of suspicions. But anyway, it's so much, and every city has a situation and a so-called. Every other city, if you really dig up. Houston has had a riot. Memphis, your city, had a riot, a hellacious riot. Every other city,
LA,
not all, but
LA
every
had
other
riots.
city has experienced a riot that was, and you go and you read the causes and look at the before and after. But right now, I'm just thinking, guys, that if you want to make a dent, we have a very small window. This window is open. The breeze is coming in. If you want to get some change or want to get something active, or if you work, I mean, whatever you're trying to push through, this is the time to do it. And that's why so many people, you mentioned the basketball, some of the guys in NBA, which I really do understand both sides of the fence. I really do. The selfish part of me want to see some NBA basketball. The selfish part of me.
Guess what? It's going to be some NBA basketball. You can talk about the selfish. It's going to be some NBA basketball.
But you can be rest assured, had there not been all of this pressure that's been recently placed on LeBron James in the last year or so, in comparing him and measuring him up against the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan.
But Jimmy, why wouldn't you play basketball? Why wouldn't you?
You say why wouldn't?
Why wouldn't you do your job?
Well,
it's a lot of people going and doing their job, Jimmy.
No.
Why wouldn't you do your job? But it's time for the break,
This-
Jimmy. We ain't
this
got
will be
time
the
because I
same-
know you're
this
going
will
to
be
go. We got to take a
This would be
quick.
the same of making a statement, making a political
We
protest.
can make a statement while you're at your job.
No.
We got to take a break, Jimmy, right now. Chop Shop, we'll be back in a minute.
A week prior to that, I was actually on Ventura. I was exercising. As I'm walking across the street, Corbin and Ventura, I see an officer to the left of me. I'm not thinking anything of it because I'm a law-abiding citizen. And also keep in mind, I got my Bose headphones on, no noise canceling, so it's really, I'm in my zone right now. I look to my left, the officer, I see him coming with guns blazing. I see him say, get on the ground, put your hands up like you're an airplane. As he's looking at me, I'm thinking that he's making a mistake. So I'm looking past where he's looking. I'm looking at him and I'm looking past me because I'm like, whoever they're about to get, it's just about to be terrible. No, he was coming to get me. 4 officers got their guns blazing. They tell me to get on the ground, spread my arms out. They put me in cuffs. The officer took his knee, put it on my neck. It wasn't as long as George Floyd, but I know how that feels. I said, why are you doing this? Like, what's wrong? They said, you fit the description of a black man in this area with gray sweatpants on and a gray shirt. I told them, I said, if you Google right now, Jay Farrow, you will see that you made a big mistake. A minute later, after I was detained in cuffs, and keep in mind, they've already asked me, do you want to sit on the side? I'm like, no, I don't even want to be on the ground. They come back, they say, we're sorry, we just got a call in that it's not you. I say, yo, get these, excuse my French, get these effing cuffs off of me. I had never been in cuffs before up until that point. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm from the burbs, Luckily, my parents, what they did was they tried to shelter me and my sister for years. So we never saw that. I didn't experience firsthand racism in America until this year. Black lives always matter. My life matters. I'm still here to tell my story, but I could have easily been an Ahmaud Arbery or a George Floyd.
Welcome back to the Chop Shop, your midday sports happy hour, the best 120 minutes of your day. We're grooving along. Of course, you guys know we're streaming live on YouTube and Facebook simultaneously. And if you're on the YouTube page, give us a thumbs up as I am doing right now. If you're in Facebook land, make sure you share this show with your hoops, your timelines, and your friends. I'm Jim Hicks, and of course it's Robert Hatter, and we are the host of the Chop Shop, and there's no sports talk show like this in the United States of America. We are in rare air indeed. Speaking of rare air, we're joined with a college coach today, and as we do all the time on the Chop Shop, you never get this many coaches nowhere in USA, in the world, as far as to talk openly, unscripted. And we don't call them interviews. We call them conversations. So today our convo is with the guy who's from H-Town, MacArthur High School, from that north. He rides shotgun with Paul Wall. Know every other lyric of the song. So he's validated. We give it. He's cookout material. He's Deucem Park material. You can bring him out there. Let him turn the meat over. I give him the fork. Let him turn the meat over on the pit. And that is, without due, of course, the head men's basketball coach at Oral Roberts and that university, and this is Paul Mills. Paul, welcome to the Chop Shop, buddy. What's going down?
I got something for Paul. Hold on. There you go, Paul. I had to give you what's going on, Coach?
Now, I will tell you, Paul Wall has a line, right? Because Paul Wall isn't that tall. I'm not either. Paul Wall has a line say, I'm similar to an ant because I'm close to the earth.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Feelings get hurt when they figure out what I'm worth. And and I always like when Paul.
Hey, keep on going.
I'm playing it right now.
Hey, man. So
it's a pleasure to be here. One with Hatter, who's probably touched every city in America at some point in his life. So he's super diversified in just how far he's been around. And then let me give a shout out to Jimmy Hicks.
Yes, sir.
100.
Yes,
top
sir.
100 of most influential people not in media, in basketball. That is a great honor, and I co-sign it. That's awesome.
Awesome.
Hey, man, appreciate it, man. Just got to keep pushing, man. Just got to keep pushing. And so now, of course, we dive right into it. We were just talking about Tulsa and the riots and Black Wall Street. Oral Roberts, let the viewers, for those that don't know geographically where your school is located, share that with them.
Yeah, we're on the south side of Tulsa. University of Tulsa is on the north side, but that's only 7 miles apart. And so Tulsa is a top 50 city in America in regards to population. It's top 10 in America without a sports team. So Louisville doesn't have a pro sports team. They're number one. Austin, Texas is ranked. But if you want to see basketball, you either come to us or there's another school you can go to 7 miles north of us. But you need to come to us if you want to see basketball. But being a top 50 city, having a large number of population here, people who really like hoop, it's great to be in this environment.
And so now, Tulsa, you guys are all of a sudden getting attention from around the country. After, even before, but of course after last night's 60 Minutes expose. When did you learn about these riots of 1821? Tell us. Because all eggs don't hatch on the same day.
Yeah, 1921, and so we're coming up on the 100-year anniversary.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I said 1821. I meant 19.
Yeah. And so I tell you what, moved here. Same as you, I didn't see the 60 Minutes special last night like you, Hicks. But similar to you is you hear a week ago that they don't even teach that here in Oklahoma, that it's been scrapped from the history books. And they just put it in place last week that this is something that's going to be taught. And so I wasn't aware of it. There's an AAU coach in Dallas named Norris Neal. Give a shout out to Coach Neal. But Coach Neal came up, brought a player up, and I said, hey, what are you going to do for the afternoon? He says, I'm going to run by Black Wall Street. And I said, what is that? And so this is September of last year of 2019. And so I kind of played it off like, oh, okay. Have fun. And I immediately, probably like a lot of people, went straight to Google and like, man, what is Black Wall Street? And how is it in Tulsa? Because, one of the things that happened is being at Baylor for all those years is everybody would talk about David Koresh and Waco. Yeah. And I'm like, man, that happened 45 miles up the road. that wasn't even in Waco. So I wanted to figure out, was Black Wall Street, the Greenwood district, was it really in Tulsa, or is it like, but it is like middle of Tulsa.
Yes.
There is a museum there, obviously. I think the information there is crazy, and y'all are aware of it. One, you have 9,000 people who became homeless after that.
Yes.
And there were 1,100 people who were injured or killed, 300 of them killed. But then during this 35 blocks that comprise Black Wall Street, 9,000 people become homeless. And you're just like, what kind of devastation actually occurred there? And you're aware of the deaths. But when you look at the history and the legacy there are 2 airports in 1921 in the entire state of Oklahoma. 2. And 6 black families own the airplanes.
Sure did.
6.
I told
6
them that,
black
Paul.
families own their own airplanes in that 35 block district. They said that $1 would change hands 36 to 100 times. That people were churning their money with the movie theaters, with the restaurants inside this community, accelerating everybody's wealth to a point to where families had their own airplanes, that there were only 2 airports in the entire state, but there were 6 families who had their own airplanes in that little 35 block radius. And then when you realize that the jealousy and the hatred and the evil, and they just snuff it out like that, with, obviously we're living in a day where people's thirst right now is justice. And we want to see things done right, and we want to see justice prevail. And this has basically been swept under the rug for the last 99 years, not even taught in the state of Oklahoma, which gives you an idea just how much of not only our history, good and bad as America, but black history, how much of this don't we know about that's been swept under the rug, that people aren't making others aware of. And obviously it's a huge travesty, but I'm glad it's coming to light.
Me too.
And that was 2019, just a year ago. And you became
that was the first I heard about it. And shout out to First Neil.
Go on.
Be aware of it.
So tell me this, since then, have you shared your knowledge of Black Wall Street to any other white friends?
Yeah, great question. I mean, the honest answer is no. One, I think that when you became aware of it, I think it's kind of been heightened here on account of what happened to George Floyd. I do think that I told this to our players here 2 weeks ago. Had a Zoom call with the players. We do it on Fridays and meet with those guys. We were doing this one on a Sunday, and George Floyd was killed on Monday, the Memorial Day. And by the time we got to Sunday, the riots had gone from Minnesota to about 500 cities across America. We saw on that particular Friday night in Atlanta the attack on the CNN and the police. And I told our players on that Sunday when I met with them, one, we all have a responsibility here, every single one of us. So I get that the majority of our players are black, but we also have 3 from Europe, Latvian, an Estonian, a young man from the Netherlands. Whether you're from America or not, we all have a responsibility here. And what hit home for me was, I mean, George Floyd is 3rd Ward, Texas.
Yeah.
And he's only 2 years removed from me. And he played college basketball at South Florida. I don't know George Floyd, but I can almost bet he and I were in the same gym together hooping. And I can almost bet that, you know, I mean, y'all two are old enough to remember this, that, I mean, you went up and down Homestead and where I grew up on the north side. Not Memphis.
I didn't go
but
up.
You were.
I ain't never been up and down Homestead until I went out there with him. I ain't never. So keep going.
And then, but you would play at Forest Brook. You would play open gym at Smiley. You would play open gym at Yates. And so all us hoopers in the city, you would all gather, whether it be Fonde or at some high school coach who would let us in, we would all gather. So I don't doubt that I ever came across George Floyd at one particular time in my life. And you don't think anything of it then, but then when you hear his story and just how much he desired to live a God-honoring life after getting things wrong, and not making good decisions as he went through. And I'll tell you where I've jumped in with a lot of my white friends is they're like, hey, man, Paul, I understand.
Paul, give me a second. Put a pin right there because we want to hear that, and I don't want you to break.
Yeah.
We got to take a quick break. We got to be a little bit conscious
all
of these
good.
breaks. But hold that one. We're going to come right back to that one because I want to hear. I want to hear what you got to say.
Yeah. Your midday sports happy hour, the best 120 minutes of your day. We have Paul Mills live with us, the head men's basketball coach at Oral Roberts. Hey, man, on this money, dropping nuggets, spitting them out there. And so now you put a thumbtack in his last statement.
Yes, sir.
So we can resume with that. Let me get that thumbtack out the wall. Let's keep it going.
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, the thing that I've shared with white friends, because what happens is when white people are around other white people, I think sometimes they stop being politically correct. Mm-hmm. And so they'll kind of share where they're at. And what I've shared is other white friends or white people that you come across say that one of the common statements is, man, I understand some of the rage of the Black community. And I've had to stop them. And I said, listen, man, that's not going to work. If you don't feel the rage, like you just being aware of the rage, you just, hey, I understand why Black community would be upset. That's not doing anything unless you actually feel it. And you have to feel it from the standpoint of George Floyd is an image bearer of God, just like I am, just like you are. We are all image bearers. We all have the same two parents, Adam and Eve. We all come from the exact same space.
Right.
And so if you don't feel, if you can watch that video and you don't feel something, I think something is genuinely wrong with you. And so you can't come from the vantage point of saying, I understand. That doesn't work. That's not going to go. You genuinely have to feel the anger and the rage of somebody's life being taken from them in those circumstances. And until that happens, and so that's where I've tried to be engaged, specifically with white people.
Is it hard?
Yeah, because I think what happens is you remember Ross Perot speaking at the NAACP? You remember Ross Perot's comment?
I don't remember him speaking.
But remember, he was talking to the NAACP and he says, who is harmed by these economic policies that are in place? Mm-hmm. You remember his response, Hicks?
I don't remember his response.
He said, you people.
Yes.
Right?
You people.
And it wasn't as if like he wasn't even part of the equation. Mm-hmm. It's like there is Black community and then there is white community. And you people, it wasn't an us, it wasn't a we, it was this, there is this mental separation between Blacks and whites or Hispanics and whites. And it was like, you people. And he just keeps on. And finally, somebody from the audience screams out, you mean us? It's like what Ross Perot and people like Ross Perot don't understand is that we are all image bearers of God, and we all have a role to play. And until you can get away from this alienation, I would tell you that's where white people that I'm in touch with, it is, well, that is a black issue. And what I don't think people understand is it's not a black issue. It's not a that's you people issue that Ross Perot outed.
But Paul, you got to remember, Paul, in the Constitution, it says black people were less than a man, 3/4 of a man. So if you've been ingrained all your life to say, I mean, you're thinking like a man who fears God and loves God and understand Adam and Eve. We both came from Adam and Eve. But when Thomas Jefferson and when them guys got together, they must have forgot about Adam and Eve. When they got together to put this Constitution together, they didn't use that principle. They didn't use those principles. So if you're growing up thinking somebody is less than, Paul, something happened over the weekend. Paul, after all of this stuff is going on, okay, all this stuff going on, you still had a guy that pull up to the Wendy's, fall asleep in the car, which he shouldn't have been drunk and driving, okay. Fall asleep in the car, get out the car, talk to the police, nice conversation. I went to visit my mama. I went to my mama's grave. My daughter having a birthday party. How can Paul, you got to help me with this one. How can you go from there to there just like that and you're a trained professional? How could you let that thing escalate from this guy? So I'm just thinking about this police officer right now who has lost his job. Sit there, and he was condescending. If you go back and look, he was trying to trap. Now, how many drinks you had? He went back and forth. But to go from there, talking, I know they got their ass, they got their behind whooped. The man whooped 2 police officers. I'm just going to tell you right now. He whooped both of them and took his taser. Okay?
But there's your answer right there.
Yeah, but guess what? Shoot him in the back. You remember, I'm a Western guy. Westerns, I always say, you never shoot a man in the back. You never shoot a man in the back, Jimmy. You got to understand, I'm a Western guy. You never shoot a guy. You was a back shooter.
Yeah.
Come on, Paul. You can come in. Jimmy, y'all can come in. I'm sorry. Y'all can come in.
I will say that Rayshard Brooks, wasn't that the young man's name?
Brooks. Yes.
Rayshard Brooks.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And you can see, so the policeman goes up on the window and says, like, my man, you need to move this. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't. He falls back asleep, right? Mm-hmm. And he goes up there a second time and he has him park it. And you can hear the guys, he's walking back to the car and he says, do I really want to fool with this? And I would tell you, I heard that there's a young man who was kicked out of a university. He was at another school. And he came and he talked to our players. He was an all-conference player, got removed. And I remember he had a line, and this is what he said. He says, if you have to think in your mind, if you're doing the right thing, you're not doing the right thing. like if you have to contemplate this and you have to run it over in your mind and try to justify it and rationalize it. I thought that statement by that policeman, do I really want to fool with this? And the answer is here you have a guy who's sleeping, let him go park the car. Yes. And now you're done with it. He isn't breaking a law.
No.
He's not doing anything that's causing harm to anybody else. I don't know if the guy knew what his blood alcohol level was at that line, but he is asking himself a rhetorical question. Do I really want to fool with this? And the easy answer, obviously in hindsight, it's like he's not harming anybody. All right. And all indications are is I can make a phone call in order to help somebody out here. And that question, when he asked it, gives me enough of an answer there to know that, man, if you're having to contemplate whether or not you're doing the right thing, the fact that you're trying to rationalize it in your head is enough of an answer right there.
It's you know, Paul, do you feel that by it being an election year, that many white people that may be your friends, your allies, are not going to, or not still not trying to listen to the cries of many black people around? And also, when it comes to recruiting, how do you go and what's your approach now? Does your recruiting approach change when you're going into the homes of these black young men, these black families now? Now, I understand you do have history and have a little edge over most of the vast majority of the white coaches out there. We understand that, but the viewers don't know. And that's why they're watching you right now, to try to understand who Paul Mills is. What's your approach going into these houses right now?
One, I didn't know white people played basketball from my perspective until I got to college. I thought I was the only white guy that actually played basketball. I didn't even know other white people existed. It was just the area in which I grew up with is just, man, this is a sport that me and my friends all enjoy. And I never saw any white people who played basketball growing up. And so one, is the approach different? I mean, I've had this conversation with Jerome Tang. Jerome Tang and I, he's from Houston. I've known him a long time. We were 14 years together. We were roommates on the road. And so, I mean, we would talk through everything. And I can remember us talking through President Obama and just, tell me your thoughts on President Obama. This is obviously in 2008, 2007. And I remember Jerome telling me, he says, you know what? It doesn't really matter to me some of the stances that he takes economically, socially. I'm voting for a black man, period. So this man can say whatever he wants, Mills, and you need to know I'm voting for a black man. And I never really understood that until I had daughters. And so when Hillary Clinton ran in 2016, I wanted my daughters to be able to see that a woman could be president. I get where Jerome was coming from. He wants his children, his family to see that, listen, we're not any different than anybody else. A black man can be president. Yes. And so I didn't really understand that sentiment. Listen, I was all for President Obama. I didn't understand Jerome's take on it until I had daughters. And then I understood. And so that's why I go back to the issue of, unless white people actually feel, if nothing emotionally, if there is not a visceral reaction to you on account of what is happening, and the reality is I'm around so many different people, and one, I think that from a parent's perspective, they do want to know that their child is going to be safe. And so, you know what? Tulsa has come up in the news. You have a president who is coming here next weekend. I've already had a young man who signed with us say, man, help me out here with President Trump coming to Tulsa next Saturday. Now, that has nothing to do with this young man other than there's a perception of why would somebody like him be welcomed in a city like that? Like, does that speak to the city. And you kind of have to let him know that the president, Trump, is going to move around wherever he thinks he's going to get support, but know that he's supported here. And so I do think that you're going to have to answer questions about things that come up. And obviously they're individually based. But you need to be able to speak, and you also need to be able to have witnesses, i.e. your players. I mean, I don't say this to brag, but we didn't have a single transfer this year in a time when a lot of players are transferring. And I would say, one, are they being treated well? And then two, are they being treated honestly? And I think some of your best advocates, if your players can answer those questions. And so where I think that parents come in is you need to interview 1 through 13 on the roster. And because coaches will sit there, and the reality is coaches are professional salesmen, and they can make anything. You can sell ice to Eskimos, and they're professional salesmen. And so your job is to deal with kids, young men who aren't as well versed in this stuff as I am, who know, hey, I know how to answer this question. Kids are much more raw. And so I would tell you, ask them players and ask their families, have access. Can I get his mama's number? And that would be my advice, is 1 through 13, talk to players, because I mean, we've seen this with players bringing up instances of other coaches doing things and saying things. And a family may have never have known that had that player not vocalized that. And that's why it is important, as past players who've left, who've got nothing to lose. I think that's where the help comes.
Hey, Paul, you got to leave shortly, right? You have to leave?
Yes.
What time you got to leave at?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to go.
Honestly, I told Hicks I had a meeting at 1, but I had my days mixed up. I got a meeting at 1 o'clock tomorrow. So I can stay if you want me to.
One more break. Hold on then. Just give me a break, and we're going to bring you right back, Doc. That's all I wanted to find out. Chop Shop will be back in a minute.
Later.
Here we go.
Welcome back to the best 120 minutes of your day. The Chop Shop, the nation's #1 urban sports talk show, and also your midday sports happy hours. Yours truly, Robert Hatter, alongside Jim Hicks, and our special guest who's staying a little more time with us, Coach Paul Mills from Oral Roberts University. Coach, let me tell you something. I saw something, Coach, as we were going out. I saw it popped up on the screen in the Facebook feed, YouTube feed, one of the feeds. And they asked the question, you do know that Oral Roberts were the races also?
Yeah.
They asked that question.
No. I don't agree with that.
Okay.
But
that what they said.
From my yeah, I think this is actually, if you go to ORU, I think their Twitter feed right now, I know yesterday they talked about Pastor Roberts kind of being on the forefront of this race issue. And I don't know enough about Pastor Roberts or Oral Roberts and his history there. But I would, it's the same thing as Black Wall Street. I would encourage people to look into it and to look into it honestly. And I actually think that there's a long video about how Oral Roberts was ahead of that. So I guess they're speaking to the person of Oral Roberts. And I would tell you that when you go back, again, I was talking to Jerome Tang last week, and he was telling me, I said, hey, what are you doing? And he said, man, we just got done with a Bible study on racism. And I said, man, I bet that lasted short, because if you just go to Genesis 1:26, all men are made in God's image, all of mankind, we will realize that we're not allowed to hold one particular race over than anything else. It's hard for me to believe that Christian men and women can believe that one race is superior to another, and not have an accurate not biblical worldview. You can't do that. I was just telling you, Hatter, I've been on the phone this morning with Dr. David Klingler.
Yes.
You may know him, the U of H quarterback.
Yeah.
Went to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yes.
Set records there
Nice
at
guy.
U of H. And 2 years was top 3 in the Heisman. But I was listening to him talk. He's a professor now at Dallas Theological Seminary, and I was listening to Dr. Klingler talk about you cannot say that you are God's child and oppose God's children. And so this issue of race, I don't know how Christian men and women could get away with saying that. So knowing that Dr. or Pastor Oral Roberts was a Christian, I would encourage to look into it.
Yeah.
Because
look into
that's
it,
the
look into it.
reality. You have to figure out
okay.
what's
That's
doing
a
what
good
it is.
That's a good one.
Now, somebody else, we toss a couple of questions to you from a lot of the viewers in our YouTube page as well as the Facebook feed, and they're streaming right now. If you're on Facebook, guys, this is the perfect time to share the show. Share the show right now with your timelines, with your friends, with your groups. This is a great convo, and understand. One thing I like about Coach Mills is that you guys, and we're about to shoot some more questions. This is unscripted. He don't get to see these questions before coming on.
We did,
So you guys are asking these questions, and guess what? He's volleying right back over the net, and this is not a battle or a joust to see who's going to be. This is really, I call it great midday therapy. When you can hear, especially in today's time, because so many white people are afraid to talk with blacks about different stuff, and you ask him about his boss per se, the owner of the company which he works for, and you present a question asking him, did he know he was a racist? I mean, didn't flinch. Great answer. Now here's another one that's similar. Yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, and that's my thing, in that you have to applaud this Houstonian for being able and being educated enough to be able to handle this type of dialogue. So we go right over to Rick, and let me tell you something. Rick normally has darts that he throws questions, and we'll give you one of them. And he says that considering that Joel Osteen went there to Oral Roberts, does he donate substantially to the school? Any buildings named for him?
I think Joel Osteen went here one semester. And said, now don't quote me on that. I do not think he's a graduate from here. I think he went right back to Houston and said, no, you know what? I mean, his dad obviously pastored the church before him, and said, listen, I know I'm going into ministry. I have a job waiting for me. I think a lot of people, now I have a master's degree in biblical and theological studies from what I consider the greatest seminary in the world, Dallas Theological Seminary. Dr. Tony Evans, who's the pastor at Oak Cliff, really encouraged to go there. And that's a story in and of itself. But here's what I'll tell you is I've been around people who are involved in full-time ministry, and a lot of them don't want to go to school. They want to jump in and start helping people. They want to jump in and start serving communities. And so I think if you can especially do it in a situation like Joel Osteen, where your father is already prominent and you already know you have a situation, why do I need school when I already know what I want to do and go back home and do it? And so from my understanding, he's not a graduate. Okay. And I mean, you can look, I think he went there one semester. I don't know.
And a good question, Rick, and appreciate that from bringing it on the on our YouTube.
No, we haven't received any donations. I'm unaware of any building. But if you want to send one, Joel, let me give you my address to my office at the men's basketball. So if you've got something you want to send.
Now yesterday, well, we've got some more questions out there. Let's go to the B. Scott had a question. How did you pull it up for us? She said we didn't get to her question.
I did not put it up. I didn't see a B. Scott question.
Well, we get right into something that you said a while ago, Paul, Coach Mills, and you mentioned that has attracted a conversation in our Facebook feed, and that is when you mentioned it, you said coaches are professional salesmen, and so that prompted one of the viewers to say, well, to reply and say, well, that's just like saying they're professional liars, and so your take on the professional salesman being equated to professional liars.
Yeah. One, the reality is everybody's a salesman, and everybody is trying to get across something, right?
That's right.
You can do this honestly. You don't have to sell. You don't, and for lack of a better word, that's obviously a broad brush to say all colleges are professional salesmen. I actually will tell players up front, I'm not any good at recruiting, okay? I'm not good at looking a man in his eye and telling him something that will not 100% that I don't believe in. Now, if you want to call that belief, if you want to call that recruiting, if you want to call that salesmanship, you call it whatever it is that you want. But the reason that I'm not good with playing games with people, I think the best thing that a coach can do for a player, okay, so going back to this lying thing, is to treat you honestly. That is the best thing I can do, because my job is to make sure that you have a future in whatever it is you want a future in. So if you want to be an engineer, I need to make sure you have every resource necessary to be an engineer during this time here. If you want to be a mathematician, I need to make sure you have every resource in order. Now, our guys want to be basketball players. So my job is to make sure they have the resources, but it's to treat them honestly so that they and their families can make the best decision for them and their families. Because who knows their families best? They do. And so the best thing that a coach can do for a player, besides love them, and if they love them, they're going to treat them honestly. So I don't believe all salesmen or all people who really believe in something are dishonest. So I wouldn't equate the two.
Jimmy, we got 30 seconds left before break, Jimmy.
We're gonna keep rolling with Paul, and we rolling on through. We're gonna just turn the air conditioner on, put the blower on him. We're gonna keep cruising on down the road. We got Paul Mills with us, guys, and this is the perfect time. Share the show.
Yes, sir.
I'm telling you. Just let somebody know. Stop being selfish out there about the Chop Shop. We're right back after these messages.
And I understand this. In talking to the mayor, in discussing things with the Fraternal Order of Police, some of those things are workable. And listen, and I'm black too, and I know that ain't popular for you all to believe, but I'm going to tell you, I'm black and I'm proud. And I understand while y'all up here standing here not letting me speak, I understand, because as a black man, I've had to be quiet about some things. And I'm not quiet now, because I'm going to tell you, this is our time. And I'm going to answer this question. It is happening now because it is God's will. It is God's will that this is happening now. And I'm not going to pass it by. You can yell at me. You can ask me to apologize. But I'm going to keep the course. And I'm going to keep true. And I'm going to fight for what's right. I'm tired of people getting killed for no reason. And I'm in this position because it is God's will. So if you want to hear what I have to say, you got to listen. And I'm not going to sit here and talk. I'm going to have action. So that's all I've got to say.
Jimmy, I got another. I had to go through that one, but Jimmy, I got one I want to get here, and I'm pulling it up. Okay, here we go. Right now. Got something new for y'all.
Hello, basketball community. This is Brian Jolivet with Above All Sports Hoops. I'd like to welcome all of you to the Houston National Summer Showcase July 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Please visit our website at www.aboveallsports.com and register today. Attending the event will be Doug Jones with RCS Sports and Ball So Hard as our scouting agencies. We have processes in place to support social distancing and protect the athletes. Should you have any questions, feel free to give me a call, 281-414-8103. Thank you.
Hey, was that B Scott out at VCU?
We back. Hey, we back on the air right now. No, that's not that B Scott. You good? No, that's a mother here in town. That's that B Scott. But welcome back to the best 120 minutes of your day. The Chop Shop, the nation's #1 urban sports talk show, and also your midday sports happy hour. Yours truly, Robert Hatter, alongside Jim Hicks, one of the 100 most influential people in college sports in the building, and Mr. Paul Mills, head coach of Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So, Jimmy, come on. We got him back.
Yeah.
You got Cletus. Come on back, Cletus. Come on back.
And well, the next question is for Coach Mills. And somebody says, when I think of Oral Roberts, I think basketball. So why are most alumni that went pro are baseball players and not basketball? Why do you feel is that is the fact? And will it change anytime soon?
Hey, repeat that. I didn't hear you, Hicks.
The question from the viewer saying that, basically referencing that when they think of Oral Roberts, you think basketball, but why is it that most of the players that go pro are baseball players?
One, a baseball roster has a whole lot more. They've got 35 guys. You know this, Hicks. You played baseball at Texas Southern. And so there's obviously a lot more. If you've ever looked at baseball rounds, how many rounds are in a major league draft? 30?
It's a bunch.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, it just started over this past weekend.
Yeah, and I know it was shortened this past year, but I think there's somewhere around 30 rounds. And then you have, I think, 5 different affiliations with one team. AAA, AA, single A. There's usually 2 single A teams. And so, you know, a lot of times there's a lot more roster spots to fill out. So ORU has had 20 NBA players, 20, all right, has had 12 All-Americans, I'm sorry, 19 All-Americans, my bad. And so when you've had 20 NBA and 19 All-Americans, where guys have been selected as All-Americans, you've got a long history. But because of baseball here has been dominant. I think they've won 13 of the last 14 conference championships. And obviously we are trying to do that. We're only 3.5 hours from Dallas. And so players can come from Dallas. Houston, we're an hour plane flight. We got 3 players from Houston. Obviously, we hope to add more. One of them was All-American, by the way, this past year. Kevin O'Banner was an All-American as a freshman. And
about 13 points a game.
And KO, now, if you look when he was a freshman, Zion Williamson was 1, Rui Hachimura 2, Grant Williams at Tennessee 3, and then Kevin was the 4th most efficient player in the country as a freshman. And he's from H-Town. We got another player, DJ Weaver, who won a championship, a state championship. Got a young man coming in from Port Arthur Memorial, Nathan Clover. And so we've got H-Town guys. That's a 1-hour plane flight. I get back there to see my mama. So it's not bad. And so being a school in the South that can recruit Texas and Arkansas and Oklahoma, I feel like we can do what baseball has been able to do here. But the reason they've got more pros is because there's more opportunities. Now, I will say this about the pro aspect. I know we have players and people who look on. About 20% of college players have an opportunity to, or 100% have an opportunity, but 20% go pro, because professional basketball is worldwide.
Okay.
Unlike football or baseball or these other sports, they don't have the same opportunities. Let's say, but they don't have the same opportunities in Iraq, in Germany, where there's professional basketball leagues in place.
Yeah, I got you. That's good. But Coach, we got another question for you.
Well, yeah, you got one?
Yeah, they was just asking Coach how your team look. Coach, I got one. I ain't
well, I mean, but let's toss the question.
How your team looking, Coach? This year? Coach, I want to talk about DJ Weaver. I haven't heard his name.
Well, he was out this year. He was hurt this year. He missed this year. I mean, he played as a freshman, and he missed this. That's why you didn't hear him. You didn't hear him because he was injured.
Okay.
That's I want to give defense to DJ. That's why you hear him. Remember, man, he came out making a splash as a freshman 2 seasons ago.
Oh,
and that's the thing. Yeah.
He started for us.
Coach, I'm sorry. I wasn't keeping up with it. Don't get mad at me.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you.
I was busy watching Baylor.
Hey, at 6 foot, he shot 42% from 3 as a rookie.
What?
Now that's really what top 100 in the country. And this coming year, I'm just telling y'all, like,
look out.
All the people who come by, they'll say that's one of the best pro prospects out there. And I'm telling y'all get ready for DJ Weaver. I can't wait for DJ to come back.
You know, and a lot of people don't realize his mother is the head women's track coach at Prairie View. And understand, you guys should definitely understand if your mom is a Olympian, a former Olympian and a medalist, and a track coach at with a pretty good track program, then you're going to probably have some understanding about running and mechanics of keeping your wind up. Can you see any of that track training translating over to basketball with a kid like DJ Weaver? Does it help him any?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, our players are asking when they should come back, and I'm like, I told DJ, he and I were going back and forth last Friday. I said, you better stay there with your mama. You've got access to the best coach in the world in regards to mechanics. She not only was she an Olympian and a medalist, but she coaches for Team USA. And so he's got access to develop and get stronger and do things and increase his win that very few people have access to. So I don't even know if we'll have him back here because he's getting better training with his mama than he is with anything that we can do.
Good, man. That's good. Man. You just made my day, Coach.
Great kid. Now, of course, want to give another shout out for my Facebook feed and Coach Jimmy Duffer. Shout out to Coach Duffer in his retired right now, former head coach of Milby High School, the Milby Buffs. Remember, they went undefeated back in 2004 with Jawan McClellan and all those guys.
He's terrific.
Now, Coach Duffer asked for us to, can you share your journey? Because you used to be a high school coach at Fort Bend Baptist, which has now changed their name, I think Fort Bend Christian. How did you get from there to Oral Roberts as a head coach?
So was that Fort Bend Christian? Went to the Final Four. We had just moved up in TAPS classification, had done well, and long story short, they didn't want me around anymore for whatever reason, and so I made a decision to resign, and I said, listen, I've been coach of the year 4 different times, district coach of the year. We just came from a Final Four. I'll have no trouble finding a job. And long story short, it was really hard. I got told no 18 times. And I encourage a lot of young coaches to do this, is I kept a diary. And I know your name if you told me no. And you said I wasn't good enough. And so I was just motivated to prove a lot of people wrong. Well, Willis Wilson, who was at Rice University, called me up the day before practice. Back in those days, Hatter, you may remember, colleges started October the 15th.
Yes, sir.
And that was, everybody started October the 15th.
That's right.
He called me October the 14th and said, Paul, would you come up here and visit with me? I hear you're available. And he says, listen, I'll give you $2,000 for the year, but you have to paint every step here at Autry Court, like with a paintbrush. And so I got a bucket of paint, got me a white brush, and I did it. And if you go to Autry Court, it's now called Bobby Tudor Fieldhouse.
Yes.
I painted every one of them steps, and I made $2,000 the whole year. And I said, Coach, let me ask you this. I said, do I get to travel? He says, you'll get to sit on the bench right next to me. I said, I'm in. But I just loved basketball that much.
Wow.
And if I had to make sacrifices. Now, the same thing, John Lucas lost for the Cleveland Cavaliers in order to get LeBron James, because they told him to lose in order to get LeBron James. And then they got fired. Mm-hmm. And he and another guy, if you remember, Grant Gonderjak.
Yes, sir.
Grant and those guys, they came to Rice to work out every morning at 6 a.m. So I was in the gym with Coach Lucas and those guys. He was bringing in Josh Smith, Dwight Howard. They were in high school. And Coach Lucas was having all these kids and NBA guys in our practice gym. Mm-hmm. Well, I was a sponge. I was just eating that stuff up. And I was able to learn from Coach Lucas, who, shout out to him. He was just inducted into the DC Hall of Fame. And if you've ever heard his story, it's remarkable. But you would see Yao Ming to little bitty Jay Lucas in the 8th grade. And so I was around all of these guys, and I loved it. Marlon Lowe was in the gym at that time, all the time, working out guys. And so I was around basketball from 6 in the morning till all the way at night. I would do our practices, and I just became consumed. Well, if you remember, John Lucas' son, John Lucas III, was at Baylor.
Yes, sir.
When the whole thing went down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Coach Lucas says, my son is leaving, but I think the guy at Baylor is a pretty good guy. And he says, do you want to make a phone call? And I said, no, I'm from H-Town. I am not leaving Rice University. I said, and you got to remember, we were winning at Rice. There were 2 NBA players on the team, Morris Ullman and Mike Harris.
Yes.
And so I'm around NBA players on the Rice squad. I'm around NBA players in the practice gym, and I'm eating at the breakfast club every morning. So you know what? Why would I want to switch anything up? Well, I knew Jerome, and Jerome had taken a job there. And we were redoing our locker room at Rice, and they asked me to come up. I said, man, I'll go up so I can see the locker room, and then I'm going to steal their ideas, and I'm going to come back to Rice. and I'm gonna make sure I put that stuff in play here. Well, long story short, I ended up taking a job there 14 years later.
Wow.
When I was there, my second year at Baylor, we won one game. One. We were 1-15 in conference. My last year there, we were number 1 in the country. So I saw the whole pendulum swing, and I just I had an up close seat, and we've been fortunate that now going into my 4th year as a head coach here at ORU, that know Texas, very familiar with what it takes in order to win and the blueprint. And so, but my tutelage happened in Houston, Texas, in them gyms at Fort Bend Christian, watching Coach Duffer's teams at Milby. I mean, I can remember watching Ford when he was a freshman, and I was like, cool. But the best player on that team was Myron Smith, or Myron Allen. I thought
okay.
Myron Allen was, oh my goodness.
The show.
I was like, if I could coach Myron Allen, I'd have 90 more wins than what I got. But I loved watching Milby. I love Coach Duffer, obviously. Coach Duffer goes back to, there's a private school. I think it was, he's going to tell him to remind you, but I forget the name of that private school that he was at. But Houston, those streets, and Coach Lucas, I mean, Jimmy will tell you, I mean, I was running around the streets, and I was working out at Westbury Christian. So working out guys like Indy Eby, and Coach Glenn at the time would let me sit in on meetings with Coach K when they would sit in and recruit Indy. And so I had a great deal of tutelage.
Well, what we're going to do, man, great story.
Good story.
We got to go to a quick break. We come right back. We're going to talk recruiting with Coach Mills and get some nuggets that can help you guys being able to battle these muddy waters or vigorous waves of recruiting with these college coaches. Chop shop.
You and Saints linebacker Demario Davis, you're on a 6-city tour to help start conversations that will lead to real change. I know you were in Buffalo yesterday. What has stood out to you the most about in your tour about what people are doing to bring about change?
My gosh, man. It's the people, yo. But you know what? Not only is it's the people. What stood out to me the most is some of the officials in the cities that we went to. It's like we would talk to them, some we would, and some we wouldn't. Nor would it contact would get back to us, knowing that we're here to have this conversation and bridge the gap between the community and the city officials. It was kind of baffling because on one end we saw how the community came together and banded up and wanted to have these issues being expressed to the city officials or whomever governed them in that city. And the other spectrum, city didn't want to have that conversation because we couldn't reach them. So it's almost like, well, dang, y'all, I see why this is a disconnect. But then we go to another city and we have a conversation with the people on the ground, and then we turn around, we have a conversation with either, the chief of staff, so-called people, or assistants, however the case may be, and we want to draw up a plan. But the plan they feel is already working, so it's like implement another plan and find that solution to that problem. So it's like, but we still haven't met with the people yet to figure that out.
Okay.
So you got that situation. And then you go to another city, like Buffalo. I was so, taken back for it because I truly feel like that's the model that every city should take up. I mean, they met with the people. They had 2 weeks of all off just dialogue. It was heated. They all was in a tense moment. But in the end of the day, that uncomfortability they had within themselves got something pushed forward to having a solution to the problem. Now, didn't end, but they came to the table and they made something work.
Welcome back to the Chop Shop, the best 120 minutes of your day. Your midday sports happy hour indeed. This Chop Shop. Don't forget, guys, you go over to rcssports.com today. rcssports.com. That's the website, #1 info source in Greater Houston basketball. Go there and get your fix of VIP news for today. And also on the RCS Sports website, if you are a small business owner or manager or operator, we have through the month of June, we're advertising your business for absolutely free on rcsports.com. That's
Jimmy,
our
you might need to say that
way of giving
again,
back.
Jimmy, because it froze up on you. You might need to say that again. As soon as you said hey, something froze up. So say that one more time. For real.
They didn't want me to say that.
Yeah.
They didn't want me to let the world know that on rcsports.com, that website, you go look on the front, you see the info and the flyer in the Jumbotron, whereas you guys, if you're a small business owner or operator, we will advertise your company, your ad. It must be, we're not gonna make the ad up for you. It must be comprised and sent to us. We will run it for free throughout the month of June. Compliments of rcsports.com. Guess what?
And you're a top 100 influential basketball guy, and I can put my marketing on your site.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Man, hold up.
Now, Paul, explain. Of course, that list. A lot of people have no idea a lot of things that goes on in recruiting, and a lot of people that along the way that a lot of coaches rely on, and how they're able to get things done. So, give an example of just in general. How do head coaches and staffs like yours give us the deal on how do you rely on what does a recruiting service or a scouting service, scouting service, how do they benefit you guys? And just without giving coach speak, because a lot of people really don't understand. And also, I would like for you to share with the viewers, the emergence of how much us grassroots coaches and what role does the high school coach play? And basically, what's your objective? Because a lot of people don't realize you're trying to find the person with the influence of the prospect, right?
Yeah. I mean, you obviously want to identify the decision maker for any of this. And usually it's multiple people. I would tell you that the first thing you do is you say, what do we need? You need a point guard? Do you need a center? I mean, I can recall times where a top 20 center in the country would want to come to, for instance, when I was at Baylor. And it's like, we don't need that spot. He's a good player, right? But we got to get a point guard. And I think so many people take offense. And it's like, listen, we're not saying that person isn't a good player. We just don't need that particular position. And so first thing you do is you identify what are your needs. And then the second thing you do is you make calls. You say, Hicks, tell me the top 3 point guards in the city who are available. I mean, I don't want to name AAU coaches that I call because I may leave somebody out and then they're going to get upset. Yeah. But I call AAU coaches. And I think that what happens is there is this working environment between the high school and the AAU, because the high school coach is going to vouch for their player. And so what you're trying to find out from the high school coach is, what is the character? Do they show up on time? Do they stay after? How often do they stay after? Do they bug you to watch film? Do they bug you for a key to the gym? Have you ever been in there? Has he ever been in there at 6 a.m.? Or does he just show up at practice? Does he ever ask to get in early? And if they're the kind of guy, I come in, I leave. And I think one of the things that you do is you're like, can I get a number to his history teacher? Because I want to know if the kid is respectful. And so I ask for a number to somebody that he has in class. And tell
you ever call him?
100%. the first thing you do is you go through their social media. And I go through their Twitter, I go through their Instagram, and I say, let me see what you're about. And then you try to determine, all right, then you call the coach and you say, tell me about him. And then it's like, can I get a number? When you show up at the school, you're asking people, you're asking the counselor, you're asking the assistant principal, you're asking the people when you check in at the front, do you know Jimmy Hicks? You ever seen him in the office before? And they'll smile and they'll laugh and they'll be like, he was just here Tuesday. And you're like, man, let me go ahead and move on and go somewhere else. And so I think what you're trying to do is everybody says that, hey, Jimmy Hicks is a great kid. He's terrific. And I'm always, have you ever asked him to do anything hard? Well, he had a history assignment presentation and he turned it in 2 days late. Because Robert Hatter is great until we ask Robert Hatter to do something hard. And then when something gets hard, I need to know, hey, are you somebody who is dependable? And that's what you're trying to figure out. Can we count on you? Because the reality is college is hard.
Yes, sir.
And it's not easy. And you're going to want to quit. And that's the reality of the situation. Is going to be, because it's stuff you've never done before. You've never gone to a weight room. You've never seen a strength coach. You've never had training sessions. You've never done conditioning. You've never done an individual. You've never done a practice. You've never played a game. It's all new and it's going to be hard. And so I need to know, can you do things that are hard? And if you didn't turn that history presentation in on time, I'm not telling you we don't recruit you because of it. I just go, oh yeah, he'll do something that's hard, but he's going to do it on his time. And guess what? That don't vibe. And so when it comes down to, hey, am I taking Robert Hatter or am I taking Jimmy Hicks? Oh, this one kind of does things when he wants to. This other one, hey, like he'll be all in from the very beginning. And the reality is you have to have an emotional commitment to what you're doing. Otherwise, you're not going to succeed. Because if you're just going by feelings, if you're making decisions by feelings, I mean, there's been plenty of people that I would have already shot because I don't like them. There was a time I felt a certain way, but in the back of your mind, that's not the right thing to do. So I need people who can think through things and not just go off of feelings. And they say, you know what? I got a bigger vision. Jay-Z in So Ambitious, he has this line where he talks lack of ambition, no vision, so whack, right? If you can't think bigger and you're just going day to day, and listen, I've been married for 22 years, not because I do this with my feelings. It's because I understand the bigger picture. And you have to have that with players too, is can they understand? Because I'll give you, this is a line that I've used a lot. Players overestimate what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they can do in 5. And so in their mind, in a year, they go into the league. And you're just like, my man, like, slow down. Like, that's not the way it really works. And you need to understand, but you underestimate what you can actually achieve over the course of time. And you're just trying to get players to understand that bigger vision of what's actually occurring.
That's amazing.
I mean, and guess what? This is the Chop Shop.
That's amazing.
And these are the types of conversations that we provide to you guys.
And
you
also,
guys,
Jimmy,
feel free.
Jimmy,
What'd you say, Adam?
Doing his talk, I just sit there and listen. Parents, take it from a parent. College is hard. Paul, I got to reiterate that one. I got to put you a stamp on that. College is hard. It's like nothing else. The weight room and everything. My son, yes, they want to quit. And after he finished and graduated, he said, "Dad, I'm gonna let you know right now. That's the hardest thing that I ever did in my life, to be a top player and an Ivy League and have to go and work on this academic because our teachers don't care about what you was on TV yesterday. On Monday morning, you got to be in class. He told me that was the hard. And every time you were talking, Coach, I was sitting there saying, I mean, I went through it. So if parents, if you get nothing else, explain to them this freshman year, son, especially that freshman year, Coach, you didn't even go there yet.
It's two full-time jobs. And the academics, most students are going home and some of them are going back to their dorm room and they're taking a nap. Some of them do go on and they work jobs. Some of them are going to the library. You don't get that. You're going to practice where a coach's job and his family situation is on the line. And so do you think he's going to sit there and be like, hey, guys, we're not going to work hard today? And so you know what happens at the end of that 2.5 hour session is, do you think you feel like reading a book? Do you think you feel like studying? You're exhausted. And so I think what they don't understand is you're doing two full-time jobs, because the professor, they have a full-time job to educate you. I've got a full-time job. My job is to get you better, because if we can get you better, the team gets better. So I got to get you better. Well, we're not getting better if we're not working. And so we're going to work. And it's hard for student athletes, 100%.
Well, thank you so much, Coach. We got a break. Jimmy, we got a quick break. Thank you so much, Coach. We're going to bring you right back in a minute. Man, Chop Shop, we'll be back. Paul Mills, unbelievable.
In there, you get loud. To support our performance. To voice your opinion. To push us past the finish line. You paint your signs and paint your faces and match your colors and chant with the crowd. In there, you put us on your back while we put the city on ours. In there, our triumphs are yours, because when we win titles, we're all champions, right? And there you ask us to move the chains, apply pressure, go for the jugular. You scream our names and wear our names and protect our names, because we're supposed to be family. In there. But what about out here? Are you willing to scream for these names out here? Are you willing to paint and chant and walk past the finish line with us out here? You see, in there, you make noise when the game is on the line. Are you making noise when our lives are on the line? And there we said,
liberty, justice for all.
My heart was broken.
Obviously, Trayvon Martin situation.
We're highlighting a
The
long
parents
time.
of 400 years of systemic oppression. John Crawford.
Did the message get lost out here? And there you tell us to move the chains, but are you helping us break them out here? And there you tell us to go for the jugular, but are you stopping the system from going for ours out here? You want to protect our legacy in there? Protect our rights out here. You want to be champions in there? Champion our cause out here. If you cheer for us in there, stand with us out here.
Welcome back to the Chop Shop, your midday sports happy hour, the best 120 minutes of your day. Live with us, Paul Mills. He's the head coach, Oral Roberts University up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. If you just tuned into the Chop Shop, make sure you go back after the show and get the beginning of the convo when Paul Mills broke down all of the nuggets about the Tulsa massacre of 1921 and dropped all type of nuggets, including the fact that there were only 2 airports back then, and one of the airports, blacks owned 6 planes. Hey, he dropped that and remind you, that's the type of conversation we've been having ever since then. But now he's a head college coach from H-Town, MacArthur High School out of an Aldine ISD. And yesterday, or midnight, after the clock struck midnight, college coaches, Division I coaches, you guys were permitted to make contact with prospects. Explain to the viewers the rule that was activated at midnight of June the man, I forgot the day, 15th.
Yeah, so guys who are in the class of 2022 can now get communication. They all wish for it, right? They're like, I can't wait till June 15th happens. And then all of a sudden it actually happens. And you're like, man, hold up. I didn't know it was going to be this, or I didn't know. It's a lot of college coaches reaching out to a lot of different. And I would tell prospects, if you don't get anything at midnight or anything today, just understand that over the course of the next month, 2 months, that communication, if you're on people's radars, will begin to happen. This isn't a race. It isn't as if anybody commits on June 15th. Obviously, depending on who you are, you like the attention. But you kind of got to see, again, the bigger picture. You don't want to be in a situation to where, man, they sent me a photo of they got a fish tank in the locker room. I'm going to go there. And you have to be able to think through, like, man, where are there real opportunities? Where are there people who are going to really invest in me? And comb through what's true and what isn't, and people who will deal with you honestly to set yourself up for the future.
And Coach, y'all got
did you make a call?
Say it again, Jim.
Did you make what time did you make your first call this morning?
Yeah, calls. Yeah, calls. I haven't made any. I have text quite a bit.
What time is your first? Of course, the NCAA prevent guys from, if you're out there watching and you are a relative of a prospect, the college coaches cannot mention them by name until they have signed a letter of intent. So I'll supply that disclaimer. So therefore, you maybe want to know why he hadn't mentioned your baby and he just talked to you earlier and he acting funny with y'all. No, he can't do it. And the NCAA often watches the Chop Shop as well. So now you might not see them on the timeline. There are hundreds of people that are watching the show right now that all they have to do, they know they just click on, especially on the Facebook feed, and don't hit any key on their keyboard. It will be invisible. Yeah. Trust me. I've watched the show myself on my other phone in that abstract. So back to Paul Mills.
But I got one for Coach. Gosh, Jimmy, I forgot it. That quick. No, Coach. Hey, let me tell you something, Coach. Some of you coaches, I didn't want to put it because you on the show. I wouldn't put it. I got some kids forward me. I got y'all got some unique ways of texting. I mean, y'all using y'all creativity with gear on and the kid is in your uniform. I might be giving you some. I mean, y'all are really. Let me tell you something, parents. One of these days I'm gonna show you one of them. It's these coaches and these staffs y'all have, these social media staff. Man, y'all are becoming very creative with a text. If I was a kid, don't call me. Just send me what I got today. Just send that to me. You don't have to call me. So I just wanted to let you know y'all becoming very creative in your recruiting because of some of the texts that were forwarded to me from a few kids last night. And I saw them. I said, wow, unbelievable.
Well, I will say that one of the first things that I think a lot of coaches do is graphic designers have become really popular for college coaches staff. And you can find students on campus who are majoring in graphic design. And you go to them and you say, listen, I'm going to give you 5 names. And you got 5 of these guys. I'm going to give a shout out to my guy, Duncan White. He's incredible. And I tell you what, he's parlayed it into a full-time job, not even with men's basketball. And so there are people who are involved in basketball that they probably couldn't hit water falling out of a boat. But these were graphic designers who said, you know what, man, I'll help you. And their skills and what they were gifted at became evident to other people. And my guy, Duncan White, shout out to him.
So is he still a student?
He's a graduate student who just got a job offer, so I don't think he's going to be he's getting paid now. But he handled a lot of this stuff for us.
Jimmy, that makes me, what you just said, and this might help some kids out here. Thank you, Coach, for that one. Well, look, kid that grew up in my church, he used to always be up with the people in the sound room as a young kid, right? Learn it. Didn't go to school, just learn how to work the soundboard, the TV board, all of that. Now this same kid has grew up to be one of the most sought after sound men in the entertainment industry. And every time Joel Osteen leaves and go out of town and take this kid go with him. And he just learned right there in his church, on his in the church, they allowed him to be in that room. So Duncan, sit there and you allowed him to do his work there, and look what happened for him. So, boy, hey, let me tell you something. Your talent will make a way for you. That's all I can tell you. Jimmy, what you got?
Yeah, and want to ask you, Coach Mills, and that is with the NCAA is encouraging you guys, your program basketball coaches, to take the day off for your players for Election Day. What's your stance on that?
Yeah, I mean, one, a lot of players at universities are probably from out of state. And so if you're sitting around waiting until Election Day going, hey, guys, I'm going to give y'all the day off, these guys aren't going to be able to do anything. I mean, are they going to drive back to where they're from?
Good point.
Are they going to be there? I don't think it doesn't, depending upon where you're at in the country. I mean, it's not a day-long job. We're fortunate that ORU has let the entire school out on Election Day.
Good.
And so we don't even have school on Election Day. And so these students don't have class. And so I do think that if students have class, that they shouldn't have practice. But I think a coach's more important job is to make sure, one, they're registered, and then number two, do they have absentee ballots? Because if you're sitting around and you say, hey, Hicks, and you're with me in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I say, go vote, you're like, I'm supposed to drive to Houston and then drive back. And you're like, I'm good. Like, I'm not going to vote. That I think the coach's job, are you guys registered to vote? And you need to provide that, and you need to stay on top of them. And then two, do you have absentee ballots?
Yes.
Okay. I got a lot of kids from Texas. And so me letting them off, and I'm not telling you that, but the whole idea of, hey, I'm encouraging you, that ain't the game. Like that ain't the game. They got to make sure they have absentee ballots. They got to make sure they know absentee balloting is 2 weeks before the election occurs.
That's right.
And so you got to be aware of that. Let's not play
the game.
Check mark. Because I gave you the day off.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, these guys don't have absentee ballots, and then they weren't even registered to vote, because now it just looks like you're trying to get over.
But, Coach.
So that's the priority, I think, for coaches.
No, Coach, but they could use that day as a day of service to go help people at the polls, or help get souls to the polls, and help get people to the polls. They could use that as a day of service. That's the only, I understand what you're saying, but they could use that day for a day of service.
So to be clear, 100%, I mean, we won't be practicing that day. Okay. And so, I mean, we're not going to be practicing, but if DJ Weaver isn't registered to vote and he doesn't have an absentee ballot, then DJ Weaver can't make an impact on that day for his community. And so I need DJ Weaver to be registered and have an absentee ballot. So those are the priorities for me.
So we have Dave on our Facebook feed. He tossed a question in relation to this topic. He says they can register to vote where they are, or you can have your staff help them obtain the absentee ballot. Because as we know, if the young person, this is their first rodeo process for most of them going through being able to vote. So for you to expect, even understand, for you to expect that they're going to go and do it on their own in abundance, that's not reality at most institutions.
Not reality. And that's again, I think that falls on the adults in the room. For a basketball coach and for me and my staff, our job is to do what you just mentioned, is to be able to walk them through. Because do you think that they're going to know what an absentee ballot is if they've never experienced voting before?
Great point.
And so, and me telling y'all have the day off, they're going to go, yeah. And if they go, well, let's go vote. And they're like, well, you have to register, but you don't even live here. And so I think educating them on the whole process is what the important thing is, rather than saying November the 3rd, guys, we're not going to see y'all.
That's a good point.
And also the name, image, likeness. We mentioned Florida is the latest state to pass name, image, likeness legislation. And they joined Colorado and California, which preceded them. So what is the NCAA waiting on, and when do you expect for them to make their decision, final on the NIL?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any insight to that. I'm still trying to see if the NCAA is going to allow workouts in July. I mean, I'm waiting for them to tell us that. Right now, we're not allowed to be in the gym with our players. It can only be voluntary, and that's not even with us. Right. And so I'm still waiting to see. Now, I will say this. Every coach in the world should be for getting players and their families more money. 100%. You should be able to financially support players and their families. And so if you're against that Florida and Colorado and California, yes, they should be able to make money on their likeness. I find it crazy that a kicker at UCF can't put out tutorials on how to kick a football. Yeah. And you're making takeoff YouTube videos. If you remember, the Clemson quarterback was trying to raise funds. I believe it was for GoFundMe and for a worthy cause, and they said no, you can't do that. Can't do it. And so I think that there are clear things that need to happen in order to help these student athletes that everybody should be able to be behind.
Well, Coach, look here. We are right at the buzzer. Yeah. And we have one more.
No, with the break, Jimmy. With the break, we got 9 minutes left. With the break,
we got one more short segment left, and we might as well come on back playing with us. But meanwhile, guys, you hang right there on the Chop Shop. Be right back.
Talk about the how close you all were, and you kind of alluded to this a couple months ago, of getting John Wall. People don't know that. But I know, John, that was a real thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, so tell me that story briefly if you can.
A lot of people don't know me and John from the same neighborhood, right? Yep. So, I've had John since John was probably 7 or 8 years old. I grew up with his sister, and God rest his soul, his mother was an incredible pillar, Miss Francis, in our community. John was always, I was like an uncle to him. To this day, he calls me Unc. So, he came up through my basketball camps, from the time he was 7, 8 years old to I think probably 16, 17 years old. And at the time, I got the job from Central. At Central, I was a high school coach, and then I got the job when he was in the process of making his decision. And he said, Unc, I want to come up there and visit. And I was just getting my program together at the time, and he had already narrowed his schools down. And he came on campus, and it was to see me. It wasn't. People made this big thing about it, but they didn't understand how close we were. And I think they felt to connect those dots. And, I just always told John, look, you a pro. You've been a pro since you're 14 years old, right? So it doesn't matter where you go. you're going to be there for 5 months, and then you're going to be the number one pick in the NBA draft, right? And that's just what it is. And, at the end of the day, he chose a situation in the school that was best for him. And Coach Kyle is a great guy, a wonderful guy. He's done right by him. But I just think if that would have been one of the ones that kind of provoked change and became a trailblazer and a pioneer, and we would know recruiting a little differently if he would have made that decision. But I appreciate him, and to this day, I love and respect him.
Welcome back to the best 120 minutes of your day. The Chop Shop, the nation's #1 urban sports talk show, and also your midday sports happy hour. Yours truly, Robert Hatter, alongside Jim Hicks. And our special guest today is Mr. Paul Mills, head coach, Oral Roberts University. Jimmy, what we're going to do this last segment, let's squeeze some more out of Paul this last segment. Let's see what else we can get out of it.
Say squeeze some more. Like he a good orange or something. Now, we were talking to Coach Mills about recruiting and about some of the things that are going on in college sports. One is the NCAA has yet to rule on if you guys will have a live period in the fall. Now, there are rumblings around the country that notice could take it effect. That announcement, could take effect this week, which would possibly prevent you guys to come out twice for non-scholastic and twice for scholastic events in August and September. What are your thoughts on going out on the road? And if so, would you guys be flying to events or just keeping it where you're driving to events as college coaches?
Yeah, I think that's the question that you have to figure out. Just think about driving. Let's say it's in Atlanta, right? So you're going to drive, you're going to stop and get gas, you're going to go inside a gas station, you're going to turn around and be involved with a number of stops along the way. Is that way different than being in an airport? And you're just, hey, I'm on this airport in this airplane with these 120 people. Would I come across 120 people on a drive to Atlanta? And probably on a couple of stops there and back. I think people have to figure that out. They got to figure out which one is safer. And so I'm in a position to where my daughter has an immunity issue. And so we're trying to be as careful as possible. And so do I want to be around a bunch of people and bring that back to my daughter? Do I want to put her in a situation? And so I think this is all individually based and everybody's got, but I do hope that they open it up for these 2021, 2022 players so that they get ample opportunities.
And we have a couple of questions in the Boom Boom Room for you. But first, did you see LaVelle Moton's conversation?
The Boom Boom Room, like life?
Yes, that's what we call the viewers in Facebook and our YouTube feed. They're the Boom Boom Room.
Raise Boom Boom Room.
Raise Boom Boom Room. Indeed. And that's the man, that guy right there, he's the one who stuck his finger in the pot. So now, did you see LaVelle Moton's conversation with Jason Jordan? Used to be with USA Today, now he's with Sports Illustrated, and saying he was close to getting John Wall to an HBCU, and that's one of the conversations now. Now, speaking of John Wall, I think you were at Baylor when John Wall was being recruited. Share the story of how close Baylor was to getting John Wall at Baylor.
Man, well, one, we had John's AAU coach on our staff, DeJuan Clifton. And DeJuan had played for one of our other coaches, Matthew Driscoll at Clemson. And so he had known Coach Driscoll since he was in the 8th grade. DeJuan was like the #1 player in the country in the 8th grade. So long story short, we knew DeJuan. DeJuan came, loved him. Obviously, everybody brings connections, but he brought a John Wall connection. And so, we're talking with John Wall, and John Wall says, Coach Mills, if you can beat me in Madden, because he played Madden on the PS4, I will commit to Baylor. So you know what I did for the next 2 months, 10 hours a day?
Practice Madden.
I practiced Madden, something serious. And I got good at it. And John and I played. He went up 7-0 on me, and I ended up beating him 21-7. And I was like, Jay, hey, well, long story short, if you remember, the NCAA came in, and I'm glad the NCAA watches. The NCAA came in, and if you remember, that was around the time where you can't hire guys who are affiliated with an AAU program. They have to be in an assistant coaching role, and they cannot be in an operations role. And long story short, we felt great about it. Coach Cal takes a job from Memphis to Kentucky. He ends up going to Kentucky. We both went to the Elite Eight that year. We lost to Duke in Houston in 2010. And then Kentucky lost to West Virginia. And so it worked out great for everybody. And when I see John, I kind of tease him about beating him in Madden. But John is a wonderful young man, and I'm really happy for him and his family. But I would tell you that had there not been some NCAA things involved, John Wall would have been at Baylor.
That's awesome.
Now I got a couple other questions. With your top five, your starting five Baylor Bears during your tenure coaching there.
Man, I'm not going to get anybody upset at me. I already know how this works. These players will watch. Now, hang on. Here's what I will tell you. I know they came out with like an all-decade list, and Jonathan Motley was ruled as like the best player, North Shore High School, right?
Okay.
Now, I got to tell you, Lace Darius Dunn from Monroe, Louisiana, was the best player I've ever coached. He was incredible. He was Buddy Hield, the all-time Big 12 leading scorer. Lace is second, and Buddy surpassed him. But Lace Darius Dunn was as good of a player as I've ever coached. Talented. I love Tweety Carter. Yeah. I just talked to Quincy Acey the other day. Quincy Acey was in the league for a number of years. Efe Udoh was a 6th pick. Isaiah Austin would have been a draft pick. Taurean Prince was the 12th pick in the NBA draft. Quincy Miller was the 3rd-ranked high school player in the country, and I used to fly out to North Carolina and just live there hanging out with him. But I've been blessed to be around a lot of really talented guys, specifically at Baylor. But I am going to tell you, Lace Darius Dunn's the best one I ever coached.
I've never seen him play. I've never seen him play.
He was incredible. Now, he hated being told what to do off the court. And so, hey,
that'll hurt
Lace,
you a little bit.
Get on the team. The Chicago Bulls want to work you out. No, I'm good.
Okay.
And it's
say no more.
And they don't understand it at that age, but he could hoop.
Okay.
Next question. Tell us, Coach Tang is on the in the Boom Boom Room, and he says, tell us the story real quick. We got about a minute and a half about with Kevin Bacon in Las Vegas.
Okay, so Coach Tang, because I don't have enough time for that story. Coach Tang, he and I were roommates for 14 years, right? And he has his mustache combs, and he's got these little bitty mustache combs that he uses, and he's got like 100 of them. And so I would be in the bathroom, and I'd look in his little travel bag, and I never seen a man who carried that many mustache combs all his life. And so he still, this is the year 2020, he still got a push wave. And so he's got a push wave.
Coach, he got good hair. He ain't got no push wave. He got good hair.
And he's got a mustache comb, and I love Coach Tang, but he's not I can tell more stories on him than he can me.
Now here's some breaking not necessarily news, a breaking rumor that one of the coaches in the ACC, there's expected to be a proposal that all of the ACC schools in that conference would play an HBCU on Martin Luther King Day of every year. On the road, travel to their school. That way it can help that school, and those kids can get the experience of going to an HBCU. Your thoughts on that proposal? Should that be nationwide?
I like that.
Man, my initial thoughts are I love it. I think having schools, ACC schools go, I don't think that the people out there understand just how much money is generated by an HBCU school going to a Power 5 school. I don't think people understand the dollar figures that are involved. So if you go look at TSU or Prairie View's schedule and you wonder how come they're on the road a lot, they're generating income. If you can generate income for your institution at your institution, so how packed would Frenchie's be if a school came to TSU? And so you're not only creating money and opportunities for that school, you're also doing it for the businesses around there. And I think my first...
Well, that could be an invite for you, Coach Mills. You can go and make the same proposal in your conference because there's enough HBCUs in driving distance where, I mean, it can for your conference to do it.
It's a great point. For the Summit League, yeah, especially on that date. That's wonderful.
And so, guess what, man? We at the end of the road, and we are sorry we have to end this conversation. We've been chopping it up with head coach Paul Mills of Oral Roberts University, and this is great, Coach. You did a great job at handling all of the questions coming from the Boom Boom Room. Thanks to you guys out there who helped and contributed to making this one good convo on a Monday, starting off the week. And we want to make sure you guys.
Jimmy, I got a message from the Boom Boom Room. You know, if I get up and go out of the room, I got a message for the Boom Boom Room. That was Sam Cassell saying, "Hey man, how did I do? Did they like me? Man, I enjoyed being on the show." He said, "Man, that's the best show I ever been on." He just called me, and I told him I'd call him after the show. Boom Boom Room, he said he went back and looked at some of them comments, though. So I just wanted to let y'all know Sam Cassell was thinking about y'all. Now, Jimmy, you can end the show.
There you go. And Coach Jerome Tanks and the Big 12 versus SWAC challenge. I mean, this really could be done. Yeah. But all it takes is one head coach to make a proposal. And that proposal would make that head coach it would put him in the historic proportions if he did, especially in the Big 12. Every Big 12 school is near an HBCU. Hell, UT is right around the corner from Houston-Tillotson. Big 12, that's not A&M anymore. UT, we mentioned them. Baylor can go right down the street to Wiley, or they can go to Paul Quinn. They can come down to Prairie View. I don't think Baylor want to pick the Prairie View, though. Prairie View, that's a tricky game. They don't want to do that. They better go to Grambling. But this is a hell of an idea. We'll talk more on this tomorrow, guys. But it is time to land the plane. It's time to slide on down Dino's back and yabba dabba do this thing for this Monday, June the 15th. Don't forget, guys, get out there and register to vote for the primary if you haven't done so. Yes. We'll see you guys in 22 hours. Chop shop.
Thanks,
peace.
Paul.
Thank y'all.
Jim Hicks. Rob Hatter. You are now tuned in to the Chop Shop. I'm Retro. Let's get it. We in the Chop Shop. We live in the Chop Shop. We talking sports talk. We live in the Chop Shop. We in the Chop Shop. I'm talking sports talk. So turn your dials up. It's live in the Chop Shop. We